One of the advantages of OBS is that it's free. It's an open source program. One of the disadvantages is that it's a bit daunting at first. There are other solutions that are definitely easier. Some of them are paid, and how it goes is like some of the subscription-based ones, I think maybe are $20 or $30 a month. And then you have some programs like Wirecast, which is the one that I've been using lately, that is more in the $900. And then you have Live or Studio, I think, which is from Vimeo. That one goes up to almost over $1,000, and you require a subscription for their enterprise their enterprise system. That's almost $1,000 a month with a 2-year commitment. So you're looking at $20,000. So obviously all those things make it really hard for people to be able to stream, but there's OBS, and once you get your head around it, it's not really that complicated. Right now, for example, this Zoom feed, I'll explain a little bit of what I have going. Right now I'm running 2 computers. One of them is the one that is receiving this camera, as well as the other camera I have connected, which I'll show later. And that's the one that's running OBS. OBS is like a control room for a TV studio. It's a switcher, basically. So this is where you're going to be able to deal with any sort of source that you want to have in your feed, whether that is the video image or the sound, or even like lower thirds, maybe putting your name at the bottom, or adding a video in between the interview if that's what you're doing, or have a rolling credit at the bottom, or your donation website, or even the chat function, for example, and some different effects that you can do with it. Right now, how you're seeing it, however, is using a projector view. So if I press escape, you'll see that this is what OBS looks like. There are, I think that when you actually open it for the first time, it looks more like this. This is more like what you would see at a studio, where on the left you have the preview, right? So anything that you're changing here won't be in program yet. Program is what's going to the stream already. So this allows you to sort of prepare your show beforehand and add the different sources that you want. But to be honest, I usually run it just on this mode where you can only see the program, and I do all my programming beforehand. So,
and I beg your pardon, Guillermo, if I can stop you just for a moment. And I'm perfect for this, considering I know next to nothing, so I'm a good baseline. Can you, just bare basics, what does OBS actually stand for?
I think it's Open Broadcasting Software.
Okay, so it's not a proprietary term that belongs to one program. OBS is a class of programs, and you can search for different versions of them.
No, it's the name of this one specific program. Yeah.
Okay, great.
They called it OBS, but you know, it's not like DAW, that means Digital Audio Workstation, and Pro Tools is a DAW, but Logic is also a DAW. I think the kind of program, it's just switcher, you know, it's a video switcher.
Okay.
Is what I would call it. And yeah, OBS is this one, which is proprietary, but again, is open source. So if I show you, for example, yeah, if we open this and then go to OBS, not plugins, but just download, let's say, it'll take you to the, no, sorry, not that website, to this one here, which is the OBS home website for OBS Studio. And from here, you can download whichever OS you're running it from. I have 2 computers running, as I mentioned. The one that's connected to Zoom is actually a Mac, and the one that is running OBS right now is the Windows. The only reason why I'm doing that is because the Windows computer is able to take advantage of a specific graphic card that I have inside of that Windows computer. So it just makes it so that it can record with less compression. Like the image looks a bit sharper than it does in the Mac, which is running basically a built-in graphic card, right? So then there are some times where there's going to be a little bit of glitch, or the image maybe won't look as sharp, or if I start adding a lot of components, then it'll get to the point where it starts running really hot, and the fan kicks in, and then that goes into the microphone. And there's a lot of other issues that happen. Not that you can't run your sessions from your Mac, even a MacBook Air or an old Windows computer is going to be able to run it. But again, the more things you add, the more resources you're going to need.
Great. And once again, just acting as a lowest common denominator here, can you, so OBS Studio is a version of a video switching software that you're using. It's free and open source. You've outlined a few other sort of paid or higher tier options that are available out there. Would you be able to quickly, or I don't know if you planned on getting to this a little bit later on, just showing what the setup is that you have that is currently leading to the picture and sound that you're delivering over your stream right now?
Yeah, I'm actually going to build to that from scratch.
In that case, I will mute my mic and toss it over to you. Thank you very much.
No worries. So this is OBS. I already downloaded it, but basically you download it like any application you would. On Windows, it's going to download a .exe or .exe file, and Mac is going to probably download a DMG. Just run the programs. It might ask you to do a couple of security, preferences, changes, and whatnot. But once you download it and you open it, it's not going to look like this. When you open it for the first time, you're going to find a screen that looks like this, right? So here's what you're going to be able to see, what's going to your stream. Right now it's black. And then here on the left is where you have your scenes, which I'll explain what they are in a second. And on the next tab, you have this section called sources, right? So in sources is where we're going to be able to add our sources. And what are sources? They can be pictures, they can be videos, they can be your camera, they can be your microphone. But everything is a source. Just adding your camera gives you the image, but if you don't add the microphone, then you're not going to have any audio going through it. So that's the part where I was saying that it requires you to really understand the program a little bit and what sources are. But with that in mind, you see a little plus at the bottom left. Every time you see this plus and minuses, this is just to add or remove whatever you have under those. Let's just focus on those two at the bottom for now. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this scene, because by default, the scene should have been called 1, right? Scene 1. And then on it, I'm going to click plus. And we see here a menu that says audio input capture, audio output capture, browser, color source, display capture, game capture, image, etc., etc. The one that I'm going to focus on first is the video capture device. Okay, so when I click on video capture device, it's going to bring me this window, which says create new, add existing, which obviously I don't have. So we're going to make it so that it creates a new one. You can just hit OK, and then you're going to be able to select which video source you're adding to this scene. I personally like to name them here, because if you have more than one camera, just leaving them as video capture device, the next one's going to be video capture device 2. And if you add more, it's going to just add numbers to them. I find it a bit, unless you have the same camera, so it's always Sony 1, Sony 2, Sony 3, that's great. But I like giving them names. So in this case, the camera I'm using is a Sony 6500. That's my main shot. So I'm going to name it that, and I'm going to hit OK. And then it's going to bring me to this window where it says properties for Sony 6500. The first thing we're going to look at is where it says device. Under device, you're going to find every camera that you have connected to your computer right now, right? In my case, as mentioned, I'm using a Sony DSLR. It's a Sony 6500, which has a micro HDMI adapter that then I have connected to an HDMI cable that goes into a capture card. Capture card is a device that takes the video output of anything. Could be a computer, can be if you're a gamer, for example, or it can be a camera in my case, and it converts it into USB, just as if it were a webcam that you can buy at Staples for your computer. right? Normally, you're not able to make DSLRs go into the computer like that, but this allows you to. The HDMI port on your computer won't work. You can't connect the camera there because that is an HDMI output. That is for you to connect an external monitor, which is why you won't find it listed here. The card I'm using in this case is the Cam Link, right? That's an Elgato. It's the brand, and the model is the Cam Link. So if I know that if I select this, I'm going to be able to see the image as you see there. From here, you can change a few things. You can change the frames per second. You can change the resolution as well, or you can just leave it on automatic if you want. If I select custom, for example, you'll see that, oh yeah, so the video is only outputting at 1920 already, so that won't change. As for frame rate, I can do up to 60 frames per second or 59.94. Don't worry about that too much. If you add your source and your video is there, then that means that it's connected. If it isn't, there just means that there's a mismatch between the frames per second that your camera is actually sending and the one that you're selecting here. So when it's not working, just move either the FPS, which is frames per second, or the resolution, and you'll be able to get it working. So now I'm just going to hit OK. And as you see, my image is there in the middle. You see there's also a section, if you go from sources to audio mixer, it says Sony 6500, but there's no bars moving. And I'm talking, but there's no sound going on, right? So what I need to do in order for the sound to work is add an audio input capture in this case. So when I select that, I'm just going to call this one microphone, let's say. And this is where if you have a Focusrite interface, or you have a Blue, like those Yeti microphones, or maybe you have an Apollo interface, this is where you're going to be able to select that. So in this case, I'm going to call it microphone. Again, you are prompted with this window that says properties for microphone. And we're going to go to device and select, in my case, the microphone, which is the webcam that I'm using on the side. If I had my Apollo interface, I would select Universal Audio Thunderbolt. If I were using my Focusrite device, it would say Focusrite Scarlett, you know, whatever model you're using. So once I select that, as you can see already on the audio mixer, you can see the bar moving when I'm talking, and you can see if either the sound is, like if it's turning red like that, it means that it's too hot. So you need to bring that down, either from here, or if you have an interface and you see that it's turning red, then on the gain of your interface for the microphone that you're using, bring that down. Obviously, it's going to be different on every interface how you do that. So just read the manual or just look on YouTube how to change the gain of the microphone that you're using. So yeah, now that I have these two things, I have one scene that is my main camera and my microphone. So this would be me talking just like I am now. Normally, in that case, I would name this to, let's say, just main, right? Now I'm ready to go live with this image. Obviously, there's a few settings that we're going to have to change, and I'll explain those in a second. I'm first going to prepare my whole show. So I'm going to do something that I enjoy doing a lot, actually, because when you're connecting to either YouTube or Facebook, there's always a few seconds after you hit start streaming here, between when you hit start streaming and when the streaming actually starts, which is why a lot of the streams start with someone just like looking down or looking at the camera or looking sideways and not knowing that it has started. And then it kind of throws you off your game. And when you go to actually start the show, you're already thinking about that. And it's like quicksand where you're just going to be stuck on that. So what I like doing is creating another scene that's kind of like an intro slide for the actual show. So in that case, what I would do is create another scene for that. So I'm going to hit plus here, and I'm going to name this scene intro. I can change the order of them later on. As you can see now, on main, I have again on sources the microphone and the camera. And when I go to intro, it's black right now. There's nothing on it yet. So when I'm going to add, let's just say that I end up adding an image. So if I select from sources, again, I go to plus and I'm on the intro scene. I'm going to select image. I'm going to call this band, let's say. And now it's going to take me to the properties for band. And it's going to say to browse the image. In this case, I know it's this one. You can find it wherever you downloaded it or wherever you've added those things into your computer. I'm going to hit open. I'm going to hit OK. And then let's say that this is going to be my intro for the show. Now you see that it's not filling the whole image, right? This is actually one that I downloaded from my band's Facebook. So it's already a small image. It's not the 1920 by 1080. So when I stream this, there's going to be all this black space to the side. So usually what I do in that case is I right click on it. And then, oh, sorry, it's not letting me. Why is that? Sorry, 1 second. Let me see what happened here. Let's select image again. We'll call it band one more time. Okay, we'll select it. Leave that. Weird. Oh yeah, there you go. It's just a little glitch. So I had to switch those, which is again why I prefer to do all this work before I'm gonna do the stream. But anyway, now that we're here and we see the band here under sources and intro, I'm going to right click on it here on sources, and I'm gonna click on properties. Sorry, no, not on properties, my bad. I'm gonna hit on transform, and then I'm gonna hit fit to screen.
Right. And Guillermo, I think this might be a good time to pause for a couple of questions that came up about inputs and multiple cameras. And in fact, what I'll do, instead of interpreting the question, what I'll do is I'll unmute the question askers so they can ask you directly. And then we'll start with Greg, and then we'll go on to Laura, who are the two people who have asked questions. So Greg, you're up first. I'll ask you to unmute, and you can unmute yourself, I believe.
How's that?
That's great. We can hear you.
Okay. Guillermo, how you doing?
Great, thank you. And you?
I'm okay. I'll see you soon.
Yes.
I'm just wondering about multiple camera inputs because I use an older MacBook Pro that has 2 USBs. And like you said, you're using the cam link, so that has one input for you into one of your ports or whatever. If you wanted to use multiple inputs, and I know OBS recognizes multiple cameras, what other thing might you potentially set up for like hardware and inputs?
Well, you can connect as many USB cameras as your computer has ports, basically. And if you run out of ports, you can use USB hubs for them. There's a limit after which, because of just data bandwidth, that the camera will stop working. If you need more cameras than that, then you need to get a hardware switcher.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in my case, for example, let's see, let me just add one more source here so I can show you that. I'm going to name this source. This is part of what I was explaining, so this is great. We're going to call this one webcam. Again, this one is added by USB. Both of them. One of them is a Sony that's going through the cam link, right? And I've done shows where I've had 2 cam links going. In this case, I have the camera going through the cam link, and I also have a Logitech, like computer webcam that just go through USB.
Yeah.
So I created a new scene, and it's called webcam there, and I'm going to add a source, and that source is going to be a video capture, which I'll name, let's say, Logitech. And then I'll hit OK. When it goes here, I'm going to select, oops, sorry, not that one, but the Logic Capture, which, as you can see, I have mounted here.
Right. Yep.
And I'm going to hit OK, and then I'm going to hit right click, and I'm going to go to transform, and then fit to screen, right? So
yeah, yep.
if I change between the scenes, which I can do just with up and down because they're next to each other, then I'm already able to switch between those. As you can see, because I didn't add the webcam that, sorry, the camera that goes on the, sorry, the audio device, right? You can see that there's audio here, but then when I go to the webcam one, there isn't because I haven't added that yet. But the reason why I wanted to show this camera is because, sorry, the cable mess, but there's been a lot of experimentation here. But that's sort of what you need to get if you need to use more than 3 cameras or 4 cameras even. This is a Blackmagic A10 Mini. So basically it allows you to connect 4 HDMI sources that can be any sort of camera. And then all you do is just switch from here, and then it allows you, sorry, I just realized that when I switched that, it turned the screen black. But that's because right now I have this Windows computer, the output of it, which is the output of OBS, it's going to the first input from here. That's the only thing I did just to be able to show you what most people are going to have, which is 2 USB cameras, right? But for the more advanced, then yeah, you would need to get one of those. Those are kind of the cheapest you can get for more than 3 HDMI.
Which one is that one?
This is the Blackmagic A10 Mini. They go for about $500, which isn't too bad considering that an A10 Mini can be something like $120, I think.
Do you, I'm going to ask you 2 more quick things. Do you also use like a Stream Deck or something like that so that you can, as hotkeys?
Yeah, so here's the thing. When I started what I used to call Pacha Sessions, which is this thing from my studio, this is like 2 years ago. So like very early, at least I know that gamers have been doing this for years, so they laugh at our new discoveries and all that stuff. But I got a Stream Deck a long time ago as well, and I use it sometimes. I use it only when there's going to be a lot of different scene changes and sources that I'm going to be managing. Like right now I have it connected, and I'm going to show you how to program it as well.
Great. Thank you very much, Greg. I hope that answers your question, but I wouldn't mind getting to just Laura Dickens' question about the input control into OBS. And Laura, what I will do is ask to unmute you. You can go ahead and unmute yourself and ask that question directly.
Hey. Yeah, my question was just about the audio. There was that little blue like slider. I wasn't sure if that slider was controlling like the input level into OBS or the output to your stream, and if there's like a master control for the output of all your audio sources into the stream. That was what I was wondering.
Yeah, it's the output of that source actually.
Okay.
That you're controlling through there, which is again why I was saying that if it's red already here and you're using a microphone that's a built-in microphone that has no gain control, then yes, the only thing you're left with is to bring this down. Yeah. But if what's happening is that it's turning red and you're using a microphone that's going into an interface that has a gain control, then that gain control is what would have to come down, not this fader basically. Ideally, you leave these where they are.
Okay.
And
is
then
there like if you had like a mic and like the output of your DAW or whatever, is there like a master control for both, or you individually control your sources?
That's a good question. Let's see. What happens if we go to the studio version? No, I think it's just kind of a combination of these both. Okay. Yeah. But normally what I do, like most of the time I'll be running all my sources. Like for example, when I'm recording a band or when I'm doing a stream for a band, I'll be doing all the leveling of the different sources in Pro Tools or in Logic or whatever other program I'm using. And then from there, it goes to here just as a stereo signal. Or in the case that you're using multiple cameras for myself, like in this case, for example, I wouldn't select the microphone from that camera and then the microphone from this other camera, but the microphone would always be this one right here, Or if you have a lavalier microphone, for example, then you just keep adding the same source.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Thank you very much. And we'll pause on questions, let Guillermo continue on with the seminar. And I think you were talking about adding the intro slide and how to incorporate that into the scenes.
Yes, thank you. I'm not sure. Oh yeah, there you go. But then I lost my sources. Okay, we'll just leave it out for now. Oh yeah, can I put it at the top? Yeah, great. We'll just leave it up there. And I'm gonna go back to this mode. So the image. So I have this image now. There's no audio, right? So that's good because then I don't have to be worried about being quiet before the show starts. And then once I see this image in my Facebook or YouTube stream, I know that I'm live, and I know that as soon as I go to here, people are going to be able to hear me and they're going to be able to see me as well. If you want to go a bit more advanced, and this you can do on iMovie or whatever other program you use, I use Resolve, DaVinci Resolve. There's a free version and there's a paid version. To do the thing I'm about to show, you don't need the paid version. But what I've done here is I've created I've added the image here, right? If I throw it there, you'll see it. And I'm just gonna zoom in. This is just a JPEG, right? But I can make it go for as long as I want to as video. And then I'm gonna add this other one. And what this is just a counter, right? So then this way, let's say that I don't want 15 minutes, but I just want a counter that goes for just maybe something, 2 minutes or a minute 56 or whatever. So I'm gonna make it so that the image is also that long, right? And then from here, I'm gonna crop. Again, I'm not gonna explain too much of what I'm doing here because it's gonna be different in whatever program you decide to use, but it's kind of the same thing. So I'm just gonna crop that, and I'm gonna make it a bit smaller, and maybe I'm gonna change it so that it looks, that is white, and we'll position it maybe down there. Great. So then I would render this, right, in whatever way you need to do that. In here, we'll just say counter as YouTube 1080, and we're going to put it on downloads because that's where I'm putting everything right now. We're going to hit start render, and that's going to take a little bit, right? It's at 18%, 22. This could be whatever video you have. Maybe this is a video of you guys rehearsing, or like fast forward, like a time lapse thing for the setup of the show. It can be anything you want. So I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna create maybe another scene that I'll call intro video, for example, or countdown, sorry. Intro count, and then I'm gonna add, in this case, it would be a video, which is a media source. Intro counter, and we're gonna locate the file, which is this one here, and we're gonna hit OK. So as you can see now, I have an intro, which is not just the image, but it's the image that I embedded with that counter. That counter is just a counter that I found on YouTube, and then I just grab the numbers and put them in there, basically. So then I can have this, and I can be sure that it's going, and people can see that, that I'm ready to go to the next scene whenever that is. I would obviously put that at the top so that then when I press down on the keyboard, it would go from intro count to main, and then I'm doing my show. Right, so in this same fashion, you could do something like, let's think of like an MTV kind of function, or you're doing a show where you're playing some songs, and after 3 songs, you want to play a video of one of your songs, like a video clip that you've done previously. You could add it here, and then that way, whenever you're ready to go to that video, Stream Deck, by the way, is a controller that allows you to have buttons that when you press those buttons, it goes to the different scenes you have here. You don't need to have it in order to have a show. I've done a lot of shows without it. You just need to be able to have a mouse, basically. And with the mouse, as you can see, I'm able to switch between these different sources. I noticed that this one's getting frozen a little bit. but it could be because, again, of how I have the A10 Mini going right now. This is not normally how I would do it. If I were doing it in the normal way, what would be happening here is that you would see infinite mirrors of OBS. And that took me almost 2 hours to figure it out how to do it so that you can see OBS without the infinite mirror effect happening. But I'm glad it did. But yeah, now I have that little frozen thing there. So this would be the bare minimum. On the last webinar, I talked about lighting and all that stuff. As you can see here, I have a few different lighting sources, right? I'm here. And I put some light there in the background that goes to the wall. Then I have one of these like LED newer lights. I think they go for like, I think I got these 2 lights, that one there and this one here, which are in their minimum setting right now. They can go a lot brighter than that. I got both of them for I think $250 or something like that. This is because I'm in a basement and there's no windows at all. So it does get really dark. But you know, in your house, you can do this close to a window, use some natural lighting, or just be creative with the lamps that you have, basically.
And Guillermo, we had another question from Laura. I'm just gonna put it out there. Can you use a MIDI controller to trigger scenes?
Yeah, I think I've read about it. I haven't done it myself. But I'm pretty sure that I've read about people doing it, but I'll have to get back to you on that because I'm not sure how to do that. I haven't had to, at least, but I'm just going through things now. There's hotkeys that you can add, and maybe from here we will be able to add them. Let's see. No, not there. No, I'll have to look into it. I haven't done it myself, but again, I'm sure it's doable. I'll have to Google it. I'll let you know.
That's a Googler. We'll Google that.
Yeah. Usually I have MIDI controllers, but most of the time I have them connected for audio reasons. And I did a couple of shows where I used MIDI controllers to trigger sound cues. So kind of a similar fashion as this, but I found that it was a bit, I had to end up putting labels in them, and then, you know, it gets a bit complicated. With Stream Deck, the advantage of it, let me switch to this camera, is that you can actually put different buttons in them. Like these are lights, they're like little screens. So you can program anything you want, and then you can also use them for Pro Tools and different programs too. So it kind of works like a macro function, which I'm sure MIDI would as well, but yeah, I'll have to look into that. Touch Portal, I'm not sure what that is. Is that where I'm supposed to be looking at in OBS to find that? Touch Portal. Okay, yeah, we'll see in a second. Cool. Should I move on?
Sorry, yes, go ahead.
Okay, great. So now we have the intro, or we have the intro with the counter. We have my main shot, and we have my webcam shot as well. Normally, I would then be able to switch between those. There's a few other things you can do. Like, for example, if you have some guests, what you can do is invite them through Zoom, kind of like what we have right now. And then you can take screen captures of them and put them into different places, as I will show in a second. So let's imagine that I like this frame, but I'm doing a festival, or I want more of an actual frame around me. Normally what I would do for that is I do that in Photoshop. You can use GIMP, which is a program similar to Photoshop, but just like OBS is also is open source, so it's free. You don't need to get pirated versions of the programs that you're using. You'll find that, you know, not only are you stopping the development of those companies, but you're also they fail more than the paid versions, I found. And coming from Peru, for most of my career when I was starting, I had everything pirated. But at some point, you know, as you start making money in this and you get the real thing, you do realize that there's a big difference between those. So right now, this is just an image that I downloaded. Oh, sorry, you have a question?
I just wanted to second or reinforce what you said. Pay for your music, pay for your software, pay for your creators. We support that 100% here at Wavelength. And please continue.
Sweet. Yeah, so this is a royalty-free image I downloaded off the internet that I've opened now in Photoshop. And the reason why I've opened it here is because I'm going to create a PNG, which is an image file. I don't know much of the science behind it, but it allows you to basically have holes in the image that are transparent, right? So in this case, as you can see, I have the image there, and using the rectangle marquee tool, I've made a selection. And then if I hit backspace, as you can see, it makes a hole on it. That checkered background is just the background of the image, right? And then I'm just gonna move the same, oops, no, I'm not able to do that. I'm gonna make another selection here. In this case, let's just make it bigger because maybe that's the band and it's a wider shot. And same thing, I'm gonna press backspace and it does this image that now has those two holes. So I'm gonna go here to export it, and I'm gonna export it as a PNG and make sure that you have transparency on. If you don't, as you can see now on the image, there's a white space instead of the checkered one. You could use it like that. The advantage of doing the transparency is that when you're changing the framing or when you're cropping the image, you're going to be able to have a bit of a spill where you don't really have to be as careful with it. It'll make sense in 1 second. So I'm going to export it as PNG, 1920 by 1080. And I'm going to call this one background. Again, I'm putting everything on download just for the purpose of this. Oh, and I already have one. But please create a folder somewhere in your computer and make sure that you keep everything organized. But now I've created that image. I'm going to come back here and let's duplicate my scene. So I'm going to create another one that's called main 2, but I'm going to change that to main with, what is that called? It's not layout. Is it layout? I think so, yeah. Let's say main with layout. Because I duplicated, I don't need to add the Sony and the microphone again. It already starts with it, which is great. And I'm going to now add another source. And that source is going to be an image. And that image is going to be the backdrop. And we're going to look for it. It's under downloads, and this one that's with a lot of things. And as you can see now, I'm behind the image, right? And the advantage of that is that now I'm able to resize it so that I'm only on one of these two squares, basically. If you look under sources, the order of these ones is basically how they're stacked on top of each other, as you can see them, right? So the only reason why I'm behind this beautiful picture is because backdrop is at the top. But if I move it under the Sony, then you'll see that I'm completely covering the image, right? If I resize my camera, then you'll see that the image is behind, right? But again, let's just leave it with the backdrop at the front because that's what you're gonna wanna do, right? And then I can select the Sony again so that this control is for the Sony, and I'll resize it. Again, there's those little squares next to the source that I have selected under sources. And with these squares, just by clicking and dragging, you're gonna be able to resize. Let's say that I'm putting it somewhere around here. And now you can see what I mean about not having to crop these ends, right? Because I made it a PNG, now I can just sort of leave it as it is. And then if you press Alt on your Windows computer, or I think it's Control on a Mac, you'll see that when you press it, now you're going to be able to crop it instead of resize it, right? So that way I could make it so that that's sort of my frame, right? And then on this side, I could have a video, or I could have someone else, or I could have a chat function, for example. Let's do that next.
Well, I just want to interrupt and say this is so simple but so brilliant, and I hope that's the sentiment that's going around all our participants, because already visually it elevates the entire experience so well, and I think it was a fairly easy to follow. So thank you for that.
No problem. So yeah, now I have this, and let's add, let's say, some sort of a chat thing here, which is going to be good because now I'm going to open settings. And now that we have a bit of a show going on, I'm going to open the settings for OBS, and I'm just quickly going to go through some of this stuff. Most of the time, when you start the program for the first time, it will say if you wanted to run the auto wizard, go for it. If you just want to sort of jump into it, it's going to be the best way. But under these tabs, the most important ones you're going to need to start streaming are stream, output, and that's it. Actually, these two are the main ones that you're going to need. When I hit output is where you're going to be able to see what your bit rate is, what the frames per second are going to be, what the output is going to be for your system, what the encoder is. I won't go too far into detail, but basically if I had this not on NVIDIA, which is the graphic card I have selected on my device, then it's going to use the CPU to do all the transcoding and the embedding. In this case, I have the NVIDIA card selected, which is a really fast card. And then under stream, this is where you're going to be able to connect it to either Facebook or YouTube. I'm going to show you how to connect it to YouTube. So if I go back here, actually, let me close this window here. Yeah, so I'm going to go to YouTube, and let's imagine that I wasn't on this window. So let's just go to YouTube like this. Oops, sorry, it's a Windows and it likes Bing. But then at the top, you'll see that there's this create, right? So I'll click on that little camera and then select go live, which takes me to this, which is the studio portal for YouTube. Right, here's where I'm going to be able to give it a title, to select the privacy settings as well, right? Maybe I'll call this one Guillermo Subauste live stream. You can make it public, which means that it goes to everyone. It's going to appear on searches and whatnot. You can make it private, which means that only you can see it. Or you can make it unlisted, which means that you could send that link to anyone, and anyone with that link is going to be able to see your stream. But no one is going to be able to find it. Even if they go to your channel, it won't be showing up there. It's unlisted. So in this case, I'm going to do unlisted. And I'm going to call this one test wave for wavelength. Music, is it made for kids? No, it's not made for kids. That doesn't mean that you're not cursing. This is just if you actually have a show that you're making for kids, then you have to select that. If not, then select this. It's just how it's for the kind of advertisement that they do on the show as well, I believe. And then whether there's any age restrictions or not, then I'm going to hit save. And now from this window, what you need to pay attention to is the stream URL, which is this thing here, which is like the address for your house, let's say. And then the other thing is the stream key, which right now you see as like a hidden password, basically. Don't show this to anyone because anyone with this is going to be able to stream directly into your channel, right? But I'm going to copy it, right? It gives you the option to copy it. And now I'm going to go back to OBS, and under stream, I'm going to select YouTube, right? It's on the list there. And then in the stream key, I'm going to delete whatever that was there, and I'm just going to paste the new one, right? That's a new stream key that I just pasted from the other side. I'm going to hit apply, and I hit OK. And then whenever I'm ready to start streaming, I just hit start streaming. And as you can see here at the bottom, it says dropped frames. It says that you're live. It says that you're at 30 frames per second. There's this green light here. That green light means good. If that light ever turns yellow or red, it means that your internet is not strong enough and you should probably go wired. You should try to stream wire all the time, never through Wi-Fi if you can avoid it. But again, I've seen people streaming from their from tethering from their phone, and it works fine as well. But more stability, you're going to have more stability if you go with a cable. So now let's go back here, and as you can see, I'm on the YouTube portal, and you can see my image there. It's a few seconds behind. but don't worry about that. It says excellent connection. It says that there's a concurrent viewer, which in this case is just me. And then yeah, I'm live right now. Basically, the stream has started, and anyone could watch it from YouTube now. However, I have a live chat section here. Right, so how do I add this to my stream? If you click on these three dots at the top, you're able to pop out the chat, which brings your chat here, right? And then all you need to do is copy this URL for the chat, and then I'm gonna add it here as a source. So you'll see browser is also a source. So I'm gonna call this one chat, and I'm gonna hit OK. And I'm going to delete that one, which is with the default one that it has. And I'm going to paste the chat that I just added. And now you have the chat here. I want to make it so that it's behind the image. So I'm going to bring it under the backdrop. And I'm going to resize it a little bit. And let's say that I'll put it something like that. Well, you can play around with it, you know, as long as you want to. But then if I go here, for example, and say, hello, everyone, as if I were a viewer, you'll see that it appears here as well. So I could be talking while people, the stream people that are watching on YouTube see everything going from there as well.
And sorry, Guillermo, and I think you might be leading to this, and I'm sorry for interrupting, but could you also then bring in remote video sources into this by using browser as a source?
Sort of. What I do in that case is actually through screen capture. I can't show you how I would do it with you because I don't have video going from the Mac back into the Windows. But let's imagine that, let's say that this little ninja here is the other person that I'm talking to. Right. So then what I would do in that case is let's get rid of that, of the chat function in this case. So we can even just hide it for now. And I'm going to add in this case a, it's not going to be a window. Where's window capture. Right. And this one's going to be my friend. And I'm going to hit OK. And then it says in here, it's going to show every application that you have open, Photoshop or anything that you want. In this case, it opened YouTube. So even though I'm not showing YouTube right now on my screen, you'll see that it shows there. So I'll just hit OK. And then I bring this and with Alt, oops, sorry, that's the wrong one. With this one selected, I'll change it so that it's only that guy there. This could be you on the image again, as I was saying. Sorry, the undo doesn't work for that for some weird reason. That's one of the weird things on this program. But yeah, it could be something like that, let's say. And we'll put him there, and then we'll make sure that the backdrop is at the top. And there you go. So that could be you, and the audio will now be coming from Zoom, basically.
And yeah, just to reiterate, so the idea is that if you have multiple cameras in your local space or in your studio, you can put them in as inputs through the OBS. However, if you were trying to, say, broadcast a chat like this, and you wanted multiple people in the same window, then you can do it this way, where you select the application and resize that window.
Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic, thank you.
So for example, right now, these two sources I have going, hopefully you won't delete the one that I don't want to delete. But let's get rid of that image. No, I will do want that image. I don't want my friend anymore. And then, yeah, what I'm going to add in this case is the other webcam. For example, I will go to video capture, and I will select the Logic Cam camera, and I would put it here. And also, again, because it's not behind the backdrop, I'll just move this one under the backdrop, and then I can resize it as well. And now you have both of me happening here as well. And now if I wanted to add titles, for example, you also add those as sources. So I go plus, and I will select text in this case, and I'll name this one Guillermo, and we'll hit OK, and we'll make the text be Guillermo Subauste. So you already sort of see it there in the screen. And here I can change the font. I can also change the background, right? As you can see right now, it's just white letters. You can change the colors from there. But if I bring the background opacity, then it starts fading the image behind it, which is handy as well. And then I can also change the size or the font from here, right? So that's 256. Let's say we want something like 150. Right, so it's a bit smaller. Even let's go maybe to let's say 80. Great. So then I'll hit OK, and I can bring this image right here, and then I can add another text that's called something else. Let's say side, and then it says side. And what was the? I think it was 150. What I selected. So 150 is going to be the size. And we'll be able to put this one here. Obviously, I didn't do the, let's go to properties and let's change the opacity again so that it sort of matches what I have on the other one. Right, and then, and maybe at the bottom I want something else. Let's add one more text, which is usually what you would find. Donate, let's say, for example, and we'll say, please donate to www. And we'll make the font be maybe just 100 for this. It's not going to fit, obviously. Oh, actually it does. Anyway, imagine it didn't fit. What I'm going to show you is that if you select this one source and you right click on it and go to, sorry, not properties, but if you right click on it and go to filters, which is right here, I can add a filter. A filter is, think of it like a plugin. You can add filters to video sources. You can add filters to audio sources. You can add, as you can see, filters to text sources as well. And there's one called scroll. So I'm going to add that source. And as soon as I start moving the horizontal speed, you'll see that the text starts moving as well. So then this way you could have your whole interview going while the text is there, and then still be able to switch between the different sources you have.
Fantastic. And Guillermo, I just want to confirm one point that came up in the chat. I believe I answered it, but I want to make sure I'm not incorrect here. That when you pull in a video source from a browser or a streaming window into this, that the audio is captured as well, correct?
Yeah, in that case, what you would have to do is add another audio source, right? And in this case, it would be an audio output capture, right? And from here, you would select your main output. So what that does is that anything that's going out of your computer is going into the system as well. If you're using Zoom, that means that everyone else that's not talking needs to be muted.
Okay, so just for clarification then, so I'm hosting a chat and I want to put in OBS and also have a remote guest. My audio is being captured by a microphone, and then the Zoom participant or the remote participant needs to be pulled in from the computer audio.
Yeah, exactly.
Excellent.
But now if you were doing it in, I'm just going to share my screen now, because now you're seeing my Windows screen, I believe, hopefully.
We're seeing a DAW, I think.
Oh, yeah, some sort of a DAW. You're right. So this is now my Mac computer. This is where I have the microphone connected, and that's going back into the ATEM. But normally what I wanted to show you here is that in Mac, what I do to do what you're mentioning is use loopback. And can you hear me still?
Yep.
Yeah, and the reason I do that is because loopback creates virtual interfaces. So for example, I have this virtual audio card that receives audio from Pro Tools, right? Which is where I have this going, is how I can add reverb or delay or whatever you need to add, or maybe change the EQ and make it brighter or make it darker or whatever it is that you need to do to the audio. And then here I also have zoom. So when I'm talking, you don't see this moving, but if you talk or
If I
something,
talk, I am
then you
talking.
see that you see the meters there moving. And then in that case on OBS, which I don't have open here, but if I go to my Mac computer and open OBS here, you'll see that under audio input capture, we can select loopback as our interface, right? So Mac, it has it a bit easier when it comes to the to how things work from application to application. In Windows, it's a bit tougher, but there are workarounds. I find that deselecting the output is what works best. But sometimes I've even done things like maybe take the output of, I will have two interfaces connected, two channel interfaces connected, and then I can have Pro Tools or Logic or whatever going into the second interface, which has my microphone as well, for example.
Excellent, thank you.
No problem. Yeah, and I think that's pretty much it. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of other things you can do. You can add different chat functions and sources. As you could see, there's a lot of different ones you can do as well. Video wise, yeah, if I go to filters, let me just show you this quickly. You are able to select filters from here, and those can include, for example, color correction, right? So I add these here, which allows me to change the gamma of the camera or the contrast, saturation, and like different things that if your camera doesn't have the controls for it, then you can also do from here. You can go kind of wacky with the effects and then select what you want going, and you can hide them, right? So that you can change through them whenever you need to. Yeah.
And I think there was a great question, another great question from Laura Dickens in the chat, asking about scene transitions. She used the great word snazzy. Can you make snazzy fades between scenes? But if you could demonstrate how you might incorporate a scene transition between sources.
Yeah, so basically for transitions, you have this section here where it can be cut or fade. There are a lot of really fancy transitions you can get, but how you do those is by installing plugins. So as I was mentioning, OBS is an open broadcasting software. So there's a lot of, if I go to the blog, for example, actually, one second, OBS plugins. Yeah, in the forum, you're able to find every single plugin for OBS. Some of them include, switchers and pan filters and replay source, for example. That's something you can do so that I'm talking right now, but you install this plugin and you install, and when you run it, it makes it so that once you press a button, it will go back 10 seconds and then play a replay in case it's for a sports function or something like that. Or OBS MIDI is what would allow you to control OBS with a MIDI controller. I haven't installed that plugin, but that would be how you do it. Auto subtitle is probably just like a AI, speech recognition thing. Yeah, there's tons and tons and tons of different plugins. They're all free. OBS voice meter is one that makes it so that when I'm talking, any source shows like a little waveform like you used to on Winamp, if any of you use that program.
Winamp.
Or a spectralizer, for example. Or yeah, any sort of transition. By default, if you haven't installed anything, then the only two things you can do is cut or fade. Cut meaning that when I switch between those is an immediate cut, basically, and fade meaning that it's a bit of dissolve basically, and then you can change the length of that from here. So I could go to 800 milliseconds, and then when I switch it, you'll see that it almost takes a full second to switch between those. Actually, no, I lied. There's a few more that are included, but the fancy ones are the one I find all these ones to be pretty cheesy. As you'll see in a second,
which is a completely valid aesthetic if you're going for it.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Like now, as you can see, it's switching like that, or you can add another one, like what's Stinger, for example. So we add Stinger, and you can change some of the settings here. But now when I switch between those, right, it goes to black, or I can do, let's do one more, just for, again, I've opened most of them, and every time I see them, like there's ones that create shapes of stars, and yeah, it's not my thing. For some people it works for sure. A lot of the gamers, for example, would hate my lighting and would say that I need some neon lights, or like lots of red and blue hue around. So again, it's whatever you want to make it look.
Yeah, I think everyone's looking for a star wipe, definitely. But I think we can open this up as a little bit of a discussion, in the sense that the software, and thank you very much, first of all, for outlining the features of this, but the software is a tool that artists, especially those in our Wavelength community, can use to elevate their live stream. And what I have gathered from this is, with a little bit of planning and experimentation with this software, you can really produce an entertaining and engaging experience for your audience. And beyond just the technical capabilities of the software, it is planning the experience from front to back. So having something like a placeholder or intro slide that allows you to sort of stage your environment or stage your broadcast. So like you said, you're not just all of a sudden the camera's on and there's no sort of introduction or preamble to sort of ease people into it. It's almost as if you have a curtain and then you open the curtain to reveal your set. It's a capability in the software, but it's also something that if you are doing more live streams or more broadcasts, and in the age that we're in, this is where artists, especially musical artists, are going to be sort of engaging with their audience. So creating that experience for the audience and making it an engaging thing is very important. So having intros, having a scene or transition, and then incorporating visuals like the background, and then embedding your video feeds into those backgrounds creates more visual interest, especially if you perhaps don't have access to professional lighting. If you only have the lighting and the lamps and the windows in your space, augmenting your visual broadcast with these backgrounds and transitions really helps increase the engagement with your audience.
Absolutely, yeah.
We have a question from Max. Max, your question's a little bit involved, so I'm actually going to unmute you and allow you to ask it directly. Go ahead.
All right. Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks so much for the introduction. And I think my question more comes back to this idea of getting audio from another program and using loopback. So say you figured that out and how to get audio from another source. It seems like you're suggesting to use Zoom, but I wonder if there's some audio quality drop in getting audio from another person that isn't just voice. So in my case, I'm a visual artist and I'm going to be doing like a live analog visual set with a capture card. So I assume that I should be hosting the source because of the bandwidth. Just because I want the video quality to be, I don't want to send it across to my collaborator and then have him restream it. Right. But I want his audio to be really high quality. What's the best way to do that? And I wonder if Zoom is the best, or if there's like another platform for sending high quality audio over the internet.
Well, you know, there are a few ways you can do it. I would say Zoom is the easiest in that sense. Skype, both Zoom and Skype are about the same when it comes to quality. Something that you have to make sure that you select, and I'm not sure how to show this right now, but let's see, maybe if I share my screen again. But if you go to preferences in Zoom, you just have to make sure that under advanced, you have the suppressed persistent background noise disabled, and same thing for the suppressed intermittent background noise. It's not perfect. There is obviously going to be some jitter every now and then, like some dropped frames, and and some weird thing happening. I tried Skype, I tried Zoom. I find that they have even though I used to hate Zoom, because the best quality of someone that's going to stream, like if it's just me and I'm not inviting anyone else, and you don't need the audience interaction like what we're doing here, going directly to YouTube or Facebook is always best, right? Like if you're going to do a show and you don't want to do it, like, again, you don't want to have interaction with the audience other than the chat. If you don't want to see them, then go directly to Facebook or go directly to YouTube. That's going to be the best quality you can get. Now, when you bring someone else, yeah, the problem is that the quality is going to be reduced quite a lot. And Zoom so far is the most stable one I've been able to find. I tried WebEx. Anything that's web-based introduces even more jitter, actually. Like I find that you play a guitar and the last decay of the sound, it starts getting kind of weird as well. So yeah, I find it to be the easiest. If you're using something like Wirecast, which is a different program, similar to OBS, but it's paid, it has an option called Rendezvous, which allows you to send a link to people and then they click on that link and that's how they join the stream. So it's a bit more straightforward than Zoom even, but the last version, which I tried a few times, the audio was not even as good as Zoom. And I tried with the paid version of Vimeo as well, which was, like I said, $20,000. Fortunately, they gave me like almost 2 months to try it out. And I was ready to make the jump if it meant that I could invite someone from far away and have the best possible audio quality. And it was actually not, it was kind of the same as Wirecast. It wasn't great. It's web-based. I forget the exact terminology of how they do it, but it's not, so far Zoom seems to be the most stable one.
And
now,
go ahead. Sorry, Guillermo.
You could get fancy and use something like Audio Movers or Session Wire is another one. These are programs that they're plugins that you add. Like this is, for example, if I'm doing a mix for an artist that I'm mixing their record, because of COVID, I've been doing most of them remotely. I don't do them over Zoom. I actually send them an Audio Movers or a Session Wire link, which is a link that goes directly from your DAW. It's kind of like Source Connect. If you've heard of Source Connect, it's the same thing. It's the best quality you can get over the internet with the least latency as well. But the problem is that now you have the video coming from one source and the audio from a different source. So you're gonna have to get a bit more in depth into things like, for example, right now I have my microphone source here on, you can see the Windows computer, right? I have my source there. And if I go to, where is that here? To settings, and I go to advanced audio properties, you'll see that I can set different offsets to the audio, right? So in that case, because the audio is gonna be arriving at a different time as the video, then you would have to create a unlisted YouTube or Facebook event so that you can, like I have so many videos of me, every time I get a new camera or a new setting, I'm just doing this. And I record it, right? And then I look at the image and see how far the clap is from the actual transient on the waveform that looks like a clap. And then I put that same number here in milliseconds. And that's how I get both of them in sync.
So you're slating basically your stream.
Yes.
And piggybacking on Max's question, I'm wondering how important is quality signal chain at the source in terms of making sure your audio is clean if you're pulling it in remotely. I'm thinking of making sure that your remote source, for instance, is in a nice sounding room with a quality microphone, which then gets broadcast over the internet and pulled into your stream.
Totally. Yeah, that's definitely the best way to do it. I find that even like you can even hear the room itself, right? The farther the microphones are, the more you can hear the room, and even putting curtains around bare walls changes the sound quite a bit. So I find, for example, in my case, as I had mentioned, if I share my screen one more time, I'll just show you the control panel for my UAD interface. This is not a DAW, this is just a control panel for my interface. And this is the microphone I have. The gain is cranked, but mainly because I'm using an RE20, so the microphone needs a lot of gain. I've put a Neve preamp. I'm not doing much. Normally I would high pass filter it. Again, this is to cut, right? Like if I put it at 300, I'm hitting the microphone and you can hear a lot less rumble. I usually find that, you know, my voice won't really go any lower than 160. So I usually would have it around there or 80 Hertz, let's say. And then this is where I can also make it brighter, or just, you know, if it's a bright microphone, then I could EQ it a little bit. And the other thing I do also is just compress it a bit. And the reason why I compress it is, again, because the compression that happened, not this compression, like this is audio compression that I'm showing you right now, but the compression that the streaming does on the audio, it's kind of like MP3. How MP3 works is that it uses how humans hear, right? It uses human, how we perceive sound to get rid of the things that are not as important. So in this case, anything that's not as loud as the other things are not as important because they're masked by the louder ones. So it's gonna delete a lot of information. I find that compressing your microphone makes it so that the loudest parts stay the same, but then the quietest parts actually are brought up. So what I'm sending is it's more of a like consistent block where the voice is not gonna fluctuate in much. If I get really close to it, or if I go a bit farther, it's not going to jump too much. So I find that, yeah, doing a bit of EQing and compression before the signal goes out definitely improves the streaming quality quite a bit.
Thank you very much. Now we had a question from Savino in the chat. He's asking about, he asks, can a USB mixer be used as the audio source? I have one hooked up to my PC, but it doesn't show up in OBS.
Well, it depends. On OBS, by default, only the first two channels of your interface are used as a source, kind of just like Zoom as well. So normally, yeah, you have to get a bit creative with those. I would have to read the manual for that one specific mixer, but I know I have a mixer. I have a Midas M32, which is a 32 channel mixer. And usually I have to configure the IO matrix, which again is what shows up in the computer as input 1 and 2. I trick it so that the input 1 and 2 on the computer is actually the output of the board. So if you're able to do that on your mixer, then that's how you could add it as a source. Now, if it's not showing up here, as you said, it could be a driver thing. If it's showing on your DAW, it could mean that you don't have the ASIO or the ASIO driver for it. If you're in Windows, it gets a bit trickier. So sometimes you need to download an extension for your own interface in order for it to show up here. But every source, like if we look at the audio sources in here, again, you'll see that there's 3 showing up there. But if I go to my Mac computer, let me share that screen now, and go to OBS here. If I select my audio input from there, you'll find there's different options, right? In this case, it shows the Blackmagic design, which is the ATEM, and it shows, for example, loopback or universal audio interface, right? Normally, even though I connect my microphone to the universal audio interface, I don't select this because I have my microphone connected to input 12 or something like that. So I use loopback again, so that here I created a track that has input B mic line 2, which is where I have the microphone selected, and then anything that's leaving Pro Tools will be going into the stream, including a click track, for example. I created a click track, and if I hit record, you can hear the click, and you can hear me as well, right? Or again, as I was mentioning, reverb or any sort of delay as well.
Excellent. And Laura, you had another question, so I'm just going to unmute you so you can ask your question directly as well.
Sure. Hi. Yeah. I was just wondering if there's any issues with like multiple artists, for example, having like if they all had their own OBS setup and you gave them all the stream key, could you like time it so it's just like one after the other? Or if there's any issues with multiple people using the same key?
Yeah, the stream key is actually unique. If more people were to join it, the last person would be kicked out. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend multiple people going to the same stream key, basically.
Laura, if I can ask, what's the goal of your question? Like, what scenario you're imagining?
Oh, I mean, it was kind of what like a previous person was asking, where they said like, oh, can you host it? You know, you're the host through OBS, and then you bring in other people over Zoom. I was wondering why, you know, they couldn't just also use OBS to broadcast directly to YouTube. But if they're all unique, does that mean you need to just like create a new stream in order to, how does that work? Like,
yeah, no, it's just that like imagine that there's only one key for your house and whoever has the key is the only person that can join. So you use OBS and you use Zoom because then you're the person doing the stream, right? Then everyone is coming with you and you're telling the bouncer they're with me and then that's how you come in. But if each person has the same streaming key, then again, whoever connects last would be the one that ends up taking over. Only one of them could be on the screen at the time, or even on this. A lot of issues would happen. It would reconnect and connect. It wouldn't be as straightforward as doing it through a screen capture in here.
So basically one user, it's one key per user.
I've been given a key though before just to log in to like a stream online. Maybe I'll just have to look into it.
Right. What probably happened, like you did some sort of a showcase for a group or something, and they gave you a streaming key, right?
Yeah.
Is that you're right? So what they did is that they made you the person that connects to their stream, but they didn't connect themselves. They sort of just like they went to they went to YouTube. Sorry, where is my, yeah, they went here and they went to YouTube and then they got to this section and they selected, sorry, I'm gonna dismiss it. And they copied the streaming key and the URL and they gave it to you, and sure, that's how they were able to connect, but you wouldn't have been able to have any interaction with them, did you?
Like not through OBS.
Yeah, but were they in the screen as well?
No. You're right. It was just like maybe one after the other.
It's a one-way broadcast versus an interaction.
Yeah, exactly.
Excellent.
The interview thing with Zoom is more so when you're going to have a conversation between two people.
Thank you very much for that question, Laura. And Guillermo, I think, we can open it up to questions from the audience. You can put them in the chat. I can ask them on your behalf, or I can unmute you to ask. While we wait for some of those to come through, I think it's beneficial, at least for me, to sort of recap some of the things we did talk about. In terms of OBS Studio, just so like I said, I'm probably the lowest common denominator here. I'm sure we have a lot of savvy people here on this webinar, but naming this, so you have a scene, each scene is connected to a source, and then that source can be modified. The source can be visual and that can be tied to an audio source. So within a scene, you can have a visual source and then an audio source. Your visuals can be tied to the audio, or the audio can be a separate track completely. And then you can arrange multiple scenes in an order and then toggle between those scenes, either using your arrow keys or your mouse. And you can also insert transitions. And that, I think, in a nutshell, is more or less what we covered here, but also using the outboard software, things like Loopback, and if you can, and a DAW, to really make sure that what you're pulling into your OBS is of the highest quality possible, because the signal chain starts with the source. So Guillermo, you can maybe just expand on what I just said or make sure that I was not incorrect, but please let me know if I sort of got it there.
Yeah, no, you said it perfectly. Yeah, scenes are your collections of sources, right? And sources are just anything that's going to be on the stream, either videos or audio or text or anything that you want to add to it.
Great, and the things that really contribute to the quality of the live stream that you're presenting are, it's everything that you would do to make a show fantastic for your audience. So making sure that the lighting in your environment allows you to be seen, or at least conveys the visual message that you're looking to convey. So if you want your face to be in shadow, I'm trying to play with lighting in my own place, but if you want your face to be in shadow, then make sure it's on purpose or intentional, rather than it just being a result of poor lighting placement. Make sure that if audio, and audio is very, very important. So if you are broadcasting audio, your webcam mic or your cell phone mic is not going to capture the audio in the best way, and it's very important to use a microphone going through either an audio workstation or a mixer to bring out those details. And then beyond that is planning how your stream will unfold. Things like an intro slide, which I love that you show that happening, because I'm going to definitely take that, because I've seen that happen in so many webinars or web series where people they couldn't start their stream and they're looking at the camera, deer in the headlights. But having that intro helps welcome people to your broadcast, and it also allows you to set up as a performer. So imagine a curtain being closed, you're on stage, and when you're ready, you open the curtain to reveal your show or your performance. And then the transition. So really getting creative with what your camera views can be and how you transition between those scenes. And then getting more advanced into things like cross dissolves and the other plugins and the fades to really dress up the visual experience of what you are broadcasting to your audience.
Exactly. And this is sort of what my camera looks like without the lights. Like, this is usually my working. It looks super dark, but then I would have to change the ISO settings on the camera, and it would be noisier and all that stuff. So you can see what a difference it makes to have some lights going.
Excellent. Guillermo, I'll give you a chance to maybe offer any parting words. We were scheduled until 8 o'clock, but I think you've gone through what you wanted to go through here, and no additional questions seem to be coming up through the chat. So if there's anything you want to, parting notes here.
Yeah, I guess one thing actually that I would like to cover before as well is that right now, for example, I'm going through Zoom, and when you go to Zoom, you're not able to select by default the output of OBS as your output for video. So for example, if I were to select Zoom here, I'm going to open Zoom and hopefully it won't destroy everything. And I'll go to settings. You'll find that if I go to, video, right now it says OBS camera because I already installed that plugin. But usually OBS wouldn't show up as an option. And right now, even though I have OBS camera selected there, you can't see anything. That's because I installed a plugin called NDI. NDI tools, and what that is a plugin that allows you to have a virtual output going out of OBS. So in this case, for example, I would go to virtual cam, right, and I would select start. And what that does, as you can see now on Zoom, anything that's happening in OBS is actually going into my Zoom as well, right? So if you're doing even like classes with music students or like one-on-one things where you do one better control of things. Like, for example, I've seen so many webinars that are only in Zoom, and you know that, if playing a video on Zoom is not as straightforward, you need to bring it from one side and turn off your camera, and like all the managing of media sources in Zoom is not really that straightforward. So I find that even for Zoom conferences like what this is, having OBS allows you to have a lot more control over that. And you also have a kill switch. If anything happens on the image and you just want to cut it right away, I could have another slide that says, you know, be
Technical
right back.
difficulties.
Yeah, yeah.
A drunk dog pushing buttons, and yeah.
Totally,
Exactly.
totally. Yeah.
Well, fantastic. I can't thank you enough for putting this on. It's been extremely helpful, I'm sure, for me personally. You know, just to share too much information, I'm an event producer by trade, and the world is online now. So knowing how to do this competently is such an important skill, especially as we adjust to the new abnormal as it is here. So Guillermo, thank you very much for that. Where can people connect with you online?
Well, on Facebook, I'm just as Guillermo Subauste. That's my page for producing. But on websites, Pacha Sound is my website, PACHA sound.com. And for streaming, I created streamtuneup.com. So neither of those, they're both connected to my phone. So that's how we can talk.
Excellent. And for the audience here, I want to let you know that Wavelength, of course, is producing a number of live stream events for local and I guess international and artists from abroad. And our next live stream event will be happening Sunday, September 27th. It'll be on Facebook Live, and you can go to wavelengthmusic.ca to find out more about it, or look us up on Facebook to find out more details. That event on the 27th will feature Kadima from Toronto and Downtime from Denver. If you enjoyed this webinar, you know, please engage with your local artists and your music community, artists and musicians, and everyone who survived on the performance economy or the industry needs your support more than ever. And you know, I'm really thankful for this webinar because it'll elevate everybody's ability to really engage their audience online. Guillermo, once again, thank you very much. Thank you to everyone who has joined and participated. And to let you know that this webinar has been recorded. The last one also went up on the website, so you can review it and really dive deep and get your live streaming game as top as possible. So speaking of games, I'm gonna see how our Raptors are doing right now, and Guillermo, just you know, final. I can't say thank you enough, so I'll just keep repeating thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, everyone. You are free to drop out of the webinar as I continue to thank Guillermo, and I hope you have a wonderful Labor Day weekend.
Sweet. Thank you so much. Have a good weekend.